At first, it was just like any other Monday visit. I went to her house, only she wasn't waiting on the porch as usual, she was in front of the house in her car. I thought, okay, that's a little weird, and thought nothing of it. When we pulled into the driveway, the monitor and I in her car, my mum pulled forward and blocked the monitor's car in. When we got out of the car, she was yelling at me to get in the car, which I stupidly did because I didn't know any better. The monitor rushes over and says, "No, you can't do this. This is against the rules." My mother responds with, "No, I'm protecting him from his trashy father," or something along those lines. I don't know, I was in the car, I couldn't hear. Apparently, from what I learned later on, she physically assaulted the monitor before getting in the car and driving off. As we pulled away, I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was probably something like, "We're gonna go start a better life for ourselves, somewhere where we can forget all our problems and start over," or some other BS. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got an incredible Entitled Parents story for you. Entitled Mum protects me from my dad by kidnapping me. This is going to be a heck of a first post on this subreddit. Might want to grab some popcorn for this one because this show is going to be longer than your average wait at the DMV. Chapter 1, the backstory. Getting right into it, my parents aren't exactly on the best of terms. Actually, they haven't been on remotely decent terms for a while now. After their 22-year marriage, they got a divorce back in mid-2013 when I was in 6th grade. Exact dates are a bit hazy, but I'd say it was around April/May of that year. It was quite bitter. I don't think the things my parents said to each other in the courtrooms are appropriate here, but long story short, they freaking hated each other. After the divorce proceedings started, I lived with my mum at our old house. She started spewing a bunch of BS accusations about the fact that your father is the worst human being on the planet. He's corrupting your mind, and a lot more hateful, untrue stuff. But I was only 11, which was way too young to know that it actually was BS. I just blindly accepted it as fact because that's what I had been more or less raised to do. But this was only the beginning. At this point, the monitored visits started happening. This was in about early to mid-March 2014. Also, if you're wondering why they were monitored, it was because on a scale of 1 to 10, my parents' level of trust in each other was at a negative 11,700 million. Anyways, for a few hours every Saturday, I was handed off to my dad and we'd hang out somewhere, like K1 Speed or his parents' house. Then I was given back to my mother and I'd go about my existence as an annoying as heck 11-year-old. Not ashamed to admit it, I was pretty weird. Then a plot twist happened. More like life twist, but you get the idea. Over Thanksgiving break in 7th grade, my dad got full custody of me. I went to live with him in his bachelor pads and I thought that was that. But my mum was livid. Whenever we had visits, she would try to pull me to the side and tell me to not listen to my dad, to tell him I didn't want to live with him or some other BS. But the monitor would step in because that wasn't allowed, just like the rest of the stuff she did after this point. I continued middle school, my grades got heaps better and monitored visits started again, but this time with my mum, only the visits were a little different, important for later. Me and my dad drove to a drop-off point, a park close to my mum's house. I was given to the monitor, then we drove to my mum's house, did stuff, then went back to the drop-off point and I went back to my dad's place. It was also at this point in my life when I learned not to blindly accept things my parents said as fact, unless it was actually true, of course. This was because I learned that what my mum said about my dad wasn't true. I started questioning her reasoning, but I didn't tell anyone. In hindsight, I should have. I didn't really know who to trust more or who to listen to. Life was somehow as normal as it could have been for someone in my situation. That is until Monday, April 6th, 2015. Maybe all this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't a Monday, I think to myself in fevered imagination. Chapter 2, the part where it gets interesting. On this fateful day was when everything got turned completely upside down. At first, it was just like any other Monday visit. I went to her house, only she wasn't waiting on the porch as usual, she was in front of the house in her car. I thought, okay, that's a little weird, and thought nothing of it. When we pulled into the driveway, the monitor and I in her car, my mum pulled forward and blocked the monitor's car in. When we got out of the car, she was yelling at me to get in the car, which I stupidly did because I didn't know any better. The monitor rushes over and says, "No, you can't do this. This is against the rules." My mother responds with, "No, I'm protecting him from his trashy father," or something along those lines. I don't know, I was in the car, I couldn't hear. Apparently, from what I learned later on, she physically assaulted the monitor before getting in the car and driving off. As we pulled away, I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was probably something like, "We're gonna go start a better life life for ourselves, somewhere where we can forget all our problems and start over, or some other BS. We get to LAX airport about half an hour after the visit was scheduled to end, and she asked me where I want to go. I say Washington DC because I've never been there before, but we ended up hitching a flight to Chicago for some reason. I will never forget what I said to myself as we took off. There goes my life as I know it, and wouldn't you know it, I was right. When we landed, we were called off the plane and detained for questioning. My mother and I were put in separate rooms, but the whole time I could hear her repeating, "I had to do what I had to do to protect my son." I got no sleep that night because those words were haunting me the whole time. I had to do what I had to do to protect my son. The next day, I was sent on a solo flight back to LAX. That was my first time flying alone. But before I left, my mother said to me, "When you get there, tell your dad that you don't want to live with him anymore." Deep down, I knew that the proper course of action was electing to ignore that stupid butt's decision. But me being the idiot 12-year-old I was, I said I'd do that, you know, like a liar. On the way back home from LAX, my dad told me that the incident had made the news. In the clip that he showed me, my dad summed it up perfectly. "It's worse than heck. I don't know what heck is like, but this is it for me." The next day at school, everyone was like, "Whoa, what the heck happened? We saw you on the news last night and thought you died," and in some twisted way, they were right. For the next few years, my mum would be in and out of jail for repeated violations of a court-ordered restraining order because she kept trying to sign me out of school. I'll never forget how on edge I was when she did this for the first time, but as the years went on, she did this throughout my freshman, sophomore, and junior years, I became sort of uncomfortably numb to her repeated special guest appearances in my life. The last straw was when she showed up at my house over this past summer. Not once, not twice, but on 3 distinct occasions. Now it was my turn to be livid. On a court-mandated Skype call on a Tuesday night with my mum's older sister and her mum, who are, unlike my birth giver, sane, my mum kept poking her head in, trying to see me. At that point, I had just about had enough, and I exploded. I finally called her out on her BS. In hindsight, there were some other things I should have said, and maybe some stuff I shouldn't have said, but that night was one of the best of my life. I finally felt that I had a sense of closure and that she finally understood how she was affecting me. Except for the fact that she didn't understand. That Saturday, me and my dad spotted her on the main road next to my house, again. We immediately reported it to the police and she was picked up soon after. She currently resides in jail. Chapter 3, Epilogue. The ending to this trash show is somewhat of a bittersweet one. Sweet because she'll be in jail for the rest of my senior year, and thus I don't have to worry about her showing up again. The bitter part is having to figure out how to prepare for when she is eventually let out and the aftermath that may or may not ensue shortly thereafter. It's, well, a trash show more than anything, but it's life. Not a good life, but life nonetheless. My dad and his girlfriend have been extremely supportive in this matter, and I can't thank them enough. As for me, I've been trying to live my best life, and after a significant bout of depression and a suicide attempt, I feel like I'm coming out on top. If you read this, which I doubt you will, F you, mum. Wow, well that is honestly quite possibly one of the most incredible stories I've ever read on this subreddit. Now, as OP said towards the beginning of this story, this actually made the news, and he has, in the edit, linked the news article. So I think it's only best we look through this and see what the news made of this. Okay, so the headline, Police. Mother abducts 12-year-old son after bitter divorce. An ugly divorce has resulted in the apparent abduction of a 12-year-old boy, according to the victim's father. And here we see the quote again, "It's worse than heck, I don't know what heck is like, but this is it for me." The father has custody of the child and says the boy's mother and his estranged wife, Susan, grabbed him during a supervised visit Monday and took off. So yet her vehicle was discovered at LAX, and police have confirmed that the two were on a flight to Chicago on Monday night. He also says that his ex-wife assaulted the court-appointed monitor before escaping with the child, just like it says in the story. She said that she wanted to move out of the state. She said she's looking for work elsewhere, but I didn't think she'd pull this. His ex-wife has no family in Chicago, according to the dad. She is expected to be charged with felony child abduction. Well, there you go. A lot of times I read stories on r/EntitledParents and I think that they could be a little bit fake, but this one, wow, I know for real because of this that it's not. Well, anyway, that is the end of this story. Jesus, your mum is absolutely insane. I hope everything comes out okay with your family, but seriously, what the heck? Now, I don't know for sure how long she's put away for, or if she has a restraining order when she comes out for you, but yeah, you just need to stay away from her as much as you can. But that being said, she seems so crazy that she'll probably find a way to come back into your life at some point, so I don't know, just prepare yourself for the inevitable. Anyway, that is the end of this video. Guys, let me know below, is that the craziest story I've ever read? I genuinely think it might be. If you're after some more Entitled Parent stories, I'm not sure I can offer you one as mental as this one, but yeah, click the video on screen and there are some good ones in that episode. With that all being said, I hope you enjoyed this story. Yeah, I'll see you guys all tomorrow with some more.